To mix things up a bit, let's go ahead and do a little bit of data analysis just based on the work that we've done so far using the flight data. The question we're going to be examining in this video is, are there peak days and times when departure delays are worse? We're going to accomplish this with a pivot table. If you're not already on the flight data worksheet, navigate to it and click somewhere within the body of the flight data table. Then we'll go to the Insert tab and go to the first button on the far left, the Insert Pivot Table button. It's going to bring up the Create Pivot Table dialog box. Let's just check things here. Yep, it already correctly identified that we wanted the flight data table as our data source. We do want to put this into a new worksheet, so everything is good here. Let's click OK. And that's going to insert a new worksheet to the left of flight data. Let's go ahead and give it a name. We're going to call this sheet Total Departure Delays. Hit enter, and now let's start building. So you will see the pivot table over here on the left-hand side of the workbook. And so long as you are clicked inside of that pivot table, you will also see the pivot table fields pane over on the far right side. So let's start building our pivot table. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down toward the bottom of my pivot table field pane, and I am going to find that departure hour field that we populated using the round down function, and I am going to check the box to the left of it, which is going to do something strange. Initially it's going to sum it, it's going to put those hours on values. I don't want that. Instead, I want those on rows, so I am going to left click on the sum of departure hours that's in the values quadrant over in our pivot table fields pane, and I'm going to drag it over to rows. And when I do that, I'm now seeing what I want to see there. We now have an hour breakdown for every hour that a flight was recorded as having departed from Chicago O'Hare. I want my hours on rows, but I also want to see the information broken out by day of the week. So I'm going to scroll up to the top of the pivot table field list, and I'm going to find that weekday field that we populated using the text function. This time, rather than checking the box, I'm going to manually drag the weekday field to the columns quadrant because I want those days of the weeks to run along the top. And when I do that, you can now see the result, and they appear in the correct chronologic order because Excel already has a custom list built in that makes that happen. So now we need to add some values that will allow us to assess the departure delay. If you go toward the middle of the list of field names, you should be able to find the departure delay field. And I'm going to left click and drag it down to the values area. So the thing that I'm noticing as I look at the instance of departure delay that's down in values is that I'm noticing that Excel applied the count summary statistic. I don't want a count of those values. That's not really very useful for me for analysis. Instead, I want to sum all of those departure delay values because that will give me a sense of the total overall volume of delay expressed in minutes. So we need to make some edits. I'm going to click on the drop-down arrow on the right side of Count of Departure Delay, select the option for Value Field Settings, and I'm going to change the descriptive statistic from count to sum. I also want to give it a custom name. I'm going to type Total Delay Min, and actually correctly spell delay to show that we are expressing the total delays in minutes. I'm also going to want to clean up the number format because I anticipate that these will be rather large values. So I'm going to click on the number button, change the format to number, 0 decimal places, and check the box to use the thousand separator. Click on OK. To close out of that dialog box, click OK again to close out there, and now Now I'm seeing some values. We're gonna talk about what the data in this table actually means in the next video, but let's do some additional work in formatting here. So I am going to click somewhere in the body of the pivot table, and then up on the ribbon in the pivot tables group, I'm going to select the design tab, and I'm going to apply a different style to this pivot table. I'm going to go down into the medium group and select for this one my pivot style medium 18. Select that, and part of the reason why I picked that is because the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to convert this text table into what is referred to in data visualization terms as a highlight table. And that a highlight table is a text table that has had color added to it in some way to help draw your eye to the most important values or the largest and smallest values in the table. To make that conversion here, we're going to apply conditional formatting. So let's select Home on the ribbon and click the Conditional Formatting button. Go down to the option for color scales. And here I'm going to select the red, yellow, green color scale. In this color scale, larger values are going to be color-coded as red, which at least in Western culture has a negative connotation. So red is bad, green is good, things that are yellow are in the middle. So let's select that. And initially, it's only going to be applied to the cell that you had selected when you applied the formatting. But we can change that pretty easily. You'll notice that there is now a formatting options button to the right of that formatted cell. I'm going to click on the drop down there, and we have a couple of radio buttons there that we can expand to. We can expand the formatting to all cells showing total delay values, or we can select all cells that are showing those total delay values for departure hour and weekday. I'm going to show you what both of those would look like just for the sake of example. The first one is the wrong one to pick, which is to just apply it to all cells. When you do that, the conditional formatting is applied not only to the detail section of the table, so those values that you see at the intersection of the time and weekday values, but it's also applied to your grand totals, which doesn't make sense. I mean, of course, your grand total values are going to be much larger than the values in the detail section because they're sums of all of those values. So what we want to do is apply the conditional formatting only to the detail section of the table, and that's what selecting the all cells showing total delay values for departure hour and weekday gets you. And that's much more what I'm talking about. So now we've actually got something to analyze. I'm going to stop this video here, and we'll pick up in the next lecture with actually interpreting the data that we see on the screen.